Saturday night is all right for fighting. Elton John, and you're on Bay FM 100.3, Heart and Soul of the Bay with Kay and Madonna. So we're back having a bit of a chat, Madonna. Hang on a minute, I better turn you on. That's better.
Cool. Yeah, so I thought this time we'd chat about the connection between heart disease and early baldness and greyness. So there's been another study done. This is about the fourth study in the last 4 years that's sort of made the news. And it's sort of talking about, there was a study done with 2,000 young men in India, all under the age of 40, and they were comparing a group of them, about 800 who were healthy, without any cardiovascular risk factors or anything, to 1,200 with cardiovascular risk factors, so in the family and that sort of thing. And then they basically looked at the study, and what they found was that there was an extra 20% risk compared with the early male pattern baldness. Now, you mentioned earlier on it's probably genetic or inherited, but, you know, there is links to that with heart disease as well. So what they don't know why, except that maybe it's something to do with poor circulation, maybe it's something to do with stress, maybe it's something to do with something, as you say, encoded in the genes that we have absolutely nothing to do with. But nonetheless, the ones with the male pattern baldness had a 49% risk of heart disease as opposed to 27% of those in the healthy group. And so that was the male pattern baldness. But then the premature grey, it was 50% in the grey group compared with 30% in the non-grey group. And of course, India, that was probably red anyway. Don't they colour their hair with henna? Very cute.
Oh, yeah.
Loved wandering around India when I was there.
It's interesting because, as I was telling you before, my son started receding when he was 15.
Yeah.
But and he's now got none on top. He's still got hair around the sides, but he's got a big bushy beard. And he shaves his head, so he looks a bit, you know.
Maybe he just thinks too much. Exhausted the resources in the brain.
But he even said to me, I get that from you, Mum, that's your gene.
Yeah. So the researchers are wondering whether it is an indicator of DNA damage associated with aging, because like I said, these were all young people in this particular study.
Yeah.
And the hair follicles are a target for androgens. So for example, testosterone. So it's been suggested that early male pattern baldness could reflect differences in responses to androgens that might influence heart disease. So then they also looked with male pattern baldness early onset compared with obesity, and it's actually a higher risk factor with the male pattern baldness. So it's like something like 5.7 times higher, whereas obesity is only 4 times higher. So, you know, that there's sort of those little correlations coming out as well. There was a study done in Japan in 2013 of 37,000 people, and the balding men were 32% more likely to have coronary heart disease. So, you know, there have been several studies over the years. There was another one in, I'm saying Danish people, Denmark. There was one done in Denmark with nearly 11,000 people in 2014, and that one reported that grey hair predicted future future heart disease. My apologies. Once again,
you've got grey hair.
Yeah. Well, once again, to do with there's going to be something there, whether it's stress, because how often, you know, well, once again, maybe it's because we see people all day, every day with different things, but so often when people have had, say, a stressful year financially or a stressful year with their kids or a stressful year with their business, they can pick that they've greyed more in that year.
Well, I as you know, you can see that I'm grey. But I started going grey when I was 21, and I was told that was hereditary. Yeah,
my mum, bless her soul, no, she's still alive and well, but she's a total cow sometimes. On my 17th birthday, she pulled a grey hair off my head and sticky taped it to my birthday card.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, isn't she delightful? Go Joy. Anyway, so let's put a positive spin on this, because obviously that's just a few interesting little studies, which was a bit interesting to me, that it's about 20% more than the average person without male pattern baldness. So what can we do about it? So these days there's so much study. We know that smoking is bad for our heart. We know that being active is good for us. We know that getting that weight under control, if that's an issue, is going to help out our cardiovascular system. 5 or more portions of fruit and veggies a day. How many people just don't eat their fruit and veggies every day? And we are so lucky to live here in Australia. Don't we have...
fruit and vegetables.
There is so much. We can go to markets, we can go, you know, you
Yeah.
can buy it from so many places, and really the variety is up to us.
Oh,
If we
definitely, yeah.
if we choose to buy bananas, apples, oranges every day of our life, that's our choice. But there's a lot more than that out there that we can choose. And one of the things that they talk about with cardiovascular disease is the colours of the rainbow. Get in your purples, your yellows, your oranges, your greens, you know, so all of those colours that we have available,
Yeah.
eat that combination, because each colour has a different therapeutic benefit that they're finding. So, you know, that's another thing. Cut down on the things like the deep fried fatty foods. You know, we know that they line the arteries. Funnily enough, saturated fat is one of those things that 20, 30 years ago they believed was bad, but the studies just aren't showing that so much these days. So things like for example, marble. But then again, once again, it comes to do with where are we getting our little cows from. Yeah. So if we have a cow that's been grain-fed its whole life and then it's got marbled fat throughout it, that's basically a diabetic cow.
Oh, right, okay.
Which is what marbles its meat and makes it so delicious and juicy.
Right. See, I'm not a meat eater.
Yeah, right. So because it makes you unwell, or because you don't like it, or
I just don't like meat.
Okay, cool. Because we were vegetarian for 20 years, and we did it more because my brother was a Hare Krishna. So
No. I'm sorry. I probably a sausage. Wait, a sausage or something. But
Yeah.
no, I don't eat meat. I
Yeah,
eat
okay.
more fish and chicken.
Okay, cool. So basically, the saturated fats. There's been some really neat studies come out of Europe and South Africa in the last few years, where they're looking at the things like the cholesterol, the blood pressure, all of those cardiovascular risk factors, and they are really not finding that healthily cooked saturated fat is bad for us. And once again, always, if we have that financial ability to buy the organic or the grass-fed, you know, they're going to be the best ones rather than grain-fed animals. Fish. You know, healthy fish is always good for us. Drinking less alcohol, great for the heart. And of course, pay attention to your labels when you're buying things. You know, if there are a million things in there you can't read or understand, that's probably not the best thing for you.
No, it's probably not.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we'll take a break because it's nearly time for the news to come up shortly, but we'll take a break and then I will come back and we'll wrap up what you've done today.